Hello everybody in YouTube land. It is wonderful to be with you for another Astro Weather Report. Before we get into this week's Astro Weather, I want to say if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please do, because I've got some fabulous interviews coming up for you over the next couple of months with some really top name astrologers and very, very interesting people to talk about astrology related subjects. So don't miss a single one. You're going to learn so much and get so much information from these amazing people. And now let's talk about the astro weather. We're looking at the energies from the 28th of August to the 4th of September, and we're going to be exploring the main energies that are active during this time. And to be honest, there's not a lot happening this week, but what is happening is going to be very significant. The best days this week, if you want to know what days to take action on something, will always be when the moon is void of course. And if you need to know when that's going to happen, I'm not going to spell out all the times for you here because it's very complex. And when we're looking at all sorts of world time zones, we could be here forever. Suffice us to say, it would be good to get an app like, say, iLuna, which will show you when the moon is the moon is void of course. And that way you can avoid instigating anything new under a void of course moon. Unless, of course, you don't want something to come of all your endeavors that you're about to take. So check out something like iLuna for that. But you can, if you also want to know about how the moon will be affecting us in the upcoming weeks, you can check out my Patreon reports. I do full moon and new moon reports for all signs on my Patreon every month. And I've got a new moon report coming out this week. Don't miss out on that if you want to know a little bit more about the best days to do work according to the moon. And when I say work, I mean live your life. Now, this week's energy best days are the 29th. Firstly, the 29th of August, and I'm using Australian Eastern Standard Time. Check out your time in your part of the world when it is the 29th in Australia, and then you'll know how that applies to you. But basically, it's going to be a very good day for buying, for selling, for trading, for learning new things, for developing your skills, taking part in a workshop, undertaking important communication that might need to be undertaken, like sending those important emails, or if you're old school, writing that letter, maybe sending that special text message. It's a good day for doing those sorts of things. You'll get good results from those endeavors on the 29th. Now on the 30th, the 31st, and the 30th and 31st of August and the 1st of September, these are going to also be very good days if you want something to grow and expand and be blessed in your life. So take action with those intents to see things expand and grow and be blessed, and you'll usually see excellent results on these days too. So that's our best days this week. And what are we focusing on energy-wise this week? Well, there's two energies that I want to really point out that are unfolding this week. The first one is going to be an opposition of Neptune with Mars. And this is happening on the 3rd of September, and it's happening at 22 degrees. So here is Neptune, and where's Mars? Oh, what's Mars doing here? I'll just move him along. So Neptune and Mars at 22 degrees. Boom. This is an opposition. Now, what might this manifest in our life? What feelings might we be experiencing personally? Remember, I'm a personal astrologer. I do mundane astrology privately for myself, but I don't do it publicly. But this is a personal read of how these energies might be affecting you in your emotions, in your energy, and perhaps in your periphery of experience with other people on this day. And because of this energy on the 3rd of September, you might be feeling guilty, because hard aspects to Neptune can bring us into a state of guilt over some action that you have taken, something that you've done or said, and you start to feel really bad about it. Or maybe you might feel guilty for an action that you neglected to take, something you forgot to do, something you forgot to say, something that you lost your train of thought about and didn't actually invest in like you should have. So that's what can manifest with this energy, this guilt feeling over some sort of action that was or was not taken. Now remember, this is an opposition. Planets are sitting opposite one another in the sky, so there can be confusion over the actions of someone else. Whenever we're in an opposition type energy, it represents polarities. let's say you and another person, opposite. So there's always somebody else involved. When there's a conjunction occurring, it's usually some sort of manifestation of energy that's coming either from within you or something that you instigate in the world. When there's an opposition, it's usually some other person that is involved in whatever is manifesting. So with this opposition, there can be some confusion. Neptune rules confusion over the actions, Mars, of somebody else. Somebody takes action, you take it the wrong way. Somebody does something with a heart of kindness for you and you get offended by it, or vice versa. Somebody does something offensive and you're like, oh, isn't that lovely? Don't know how that would play out, but anyhow, that's possible. Confusion, misunderstandings, misinterpretation of the actions of someone else. Usually it will leave you scratching your head as well, going, what the heck was that all about? So that can be a thing as well. And if someone's been cheating on you, or deceiving you in some way, or hiding something from you, this is an energy that can actually reveal it, because the shadow side of Neptune is deception, cheating, sort of, I suppose, all those sort of things that we do in the dark, sort of behind other people's backs kind of thing. And so this energy of Mars opposition, somebody else, if you've been cheating on someone or if you've been being cheated on, somebody else may expose that in your life right now, because remember, it's coming from another person. So this is an energy that can reveal some sort of deceptions that have been going on. But in the positive, and remember, everything in astrology, every planet, every sign, every house has shadow and light energy to it. If you want to call them good and bad, that's your prerogative, but shadow and light is kind of a bit easier to bear. And it's like the yin-yang symbol, there's shadow and light in the yin-yang symbol, and we need both. Without the polarity of both, how are we meant to know what light is if there is no darkness? How are we meant to know what dark is if there is no light? We actually need both our shadow side and our light side. So in the positive, let's call it the light side, there might be somebody who sort of shakes you out of a state of Neptunian dreaminess or apathy under this energy. Mars is coming in saying, let's sort things out. Let's get it done. Let's make it happen. Come on, let's go. And in Virgo, when Mars is in Virgo, there's this action towards self-improvement, action towards lifting, or fixing or changing or, the status quo. And so changing the status quo. If you've been dreamy or apathetic or lazy about something, shadow side of Neptune, then there might be somebody who comes along and says, let's fix this, let's get you out of this rut, let's get on with the show. So that's one expression. Or you might even be required to take some sort of sacrificial action to help another person around the 3rd of September. So in the positive expression, Neptune is actually giving, very sacrificially giving. Now that can go to an extreme where we become a martyr, and there's an energy associated with that. If you're interested in more about Neptune, I've done a big extensive series on Neptune on my YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe, check it out. But the Neptune energy is that of sacrificing oneself, not necessarily for their good, but to make you feel good about yourself, to alleviate your guilt about something, to make you feel like you're spiritual and like you're a good person. So it's not always like, they say God weighs the heart and the motives of people, not the actions. Well, Neptunian people can sometimes, this is a shadow side again, take action to help other people, Mars, Neptune action to help other people, and that looks good on the surface. It looks like, oh, aren't they lovely? Look at them being so helpful, and they're sacrificing themselves for the benefit of another. And that can be helpful, and it might help another person. But what is the heart motive here that's going on? And oftentimes with a Neptune opposition Mars, yes, you might take action to help someone, and you might self-sacrifice to help someone, but it might actually be with a motive of, I am going to puff myself up here internally, spiritually, I'm a good person. I'm doing a righteous act. And therefore I've got brownie points in heaven. So that's a difficult energy to try and explain, but that's what's happening with an opposition, Mars and Neptune. A conjunction of Mars and Neptune might actually, or a trine or something easy and harmonious, might actually see you sacrificing for another person because you have unconditional love for them and you want to give. And it's beautiful. But when there's a heart aspect, yes, we might sacrifice, but what is the motive of our heart here? So that is what we're seeing. And if somebody is sacrificing something for you on this day, they might have a similar motive. I mean, you could benefit from it, c'est la vie, but they'll have to deal with their motivations in time, in karmic resolution time or fruition time, let's say. Anyhow, that's the first energy I wanted to mention that's unfolding. A little later on this week, that's the 3rd of September, a little earlier on in the week, we're actually having an energy that you won't find many other astrologers talking about on YouTube this week, because it's kind of a rare one that if you're into evolutionary and karmic astrology, then you will know about this particular aspect. And so that's what I'm going to talk about. This is taking place on the 30th of August. It's when the sun is at 6 degrees. Here's our sun in Virgo. When the sun's at 6 degrees of Virgo, it will actually be making a square aspect to the south node and a square aspect to the north node. Now this obviously is creating what's known as a T-square here, but the important aspects that I want to address are the squares between the nodes to the sun. And this is what's called in evolutionary astrology a skipstep. Now if you have a skipstep in your natal chart and the degree of orb has to be exact, if you have a skipstep in your natal chart, it is an indicator of some karmic issues that will need to be addressed in this lifetime. Some karmic projections that you will be carrying, some karmic wounds that you might be carrying from previous life experiences that you have come into this incarnation to unravel, to finish, to learn from. And so you're going to be given opportunities and chances to learn from those things in this particular incarnation. That is when we have a planet in a square aspect by very tight orb to the nodes. That's what a skipstep is. But that's in the natal chart. In a transiting chart, the whole world is going to be under the influence of this very karmic skipstep for just a day or two. But it's going to be long enough to be felt and experienced by the majority of people in some way or another. And so we may be dealing, if you've got a planet around, say, 6 degrees of Virgo, you might actually get a hefty dose of this energy. But all of us will feel it to some extent. The sun issues that have to do with the skipstep energy. And it could be that we are feeling like we've lost our identity in some way. And usually we've lost our identity due to the actions of somebody else. Now, this may not occur in actuality on this day, but if there is something in your past, an incident in your past where you lost your sense of self-confidence, your ego was bruised, you lost your identity in some manner, in a past, it could be a past life experience, but also in this life, then it will be potentially brought up again on this day. And if not, if the issue itself isn't brought up for you to deal with, then the outcome might be brought up, like the emotional behavioral patterns that you have adopted because of that experience might come up in your life for addressing. They might be triggered by somebody else in some way. I'll try and think of an illustration. Let's say as a child, somebody, maybe a teacher, made you feel really useless, really incompetent, and shattered your beautiful childhood, childlike sense of, I'm special, I'm wonderful. And some teacher maybe, put the thumb on you, and that was the end of that feeling of I'm so special and wonderful. Every child should get the opportunity to feel that way. And because of that experience in childhood of a loss of identity, it might have left you feeling a little bit like, let's say it happened in a realm of drawing pictures and you were told you couldn't draw as a child, and so you lost that sense of identity. And then in this energy that's playing out on the 30th of August, something might happen where you're asked to draw something for somebody or design something for somebody, and you're like, you just get this overwhelming wave of, I just can't do that. I know I haven't got it in me. I'm not good enough. Loss of our identity, perhaps with creativity or whatever it might be. I'm just using creativity as an example, because of the actions of somebody else. So this skip step is actually going to trigger those kinds of loss of identity issues that we might have in our psyche. And when it triggers it, it's actually an opportunity. It's a wonderful opportunity to say, you know what, this is just a story that I'm telling myself. It's not the truth. You might not even remember who it was in your life that triggered that identity loss, but you are responsible for your journey right now where you're at. And so what you need to do under this energy is pretty much face that limitation that's been put on you and say, this is a story. This is not the truth. This is not reality. I'm going to move beyond this. And if you can be conscious and be present with that thought, then you can transcend those woundings from previous incarnations. And that's actually the purpose of a skip step, to trigger things that will then cause us to absolve those issues from either past lives or early in this lifetime. So that's one of the energies. Now, also another energy that the sun skip step can bring is social revolutions. And hello, we're already in that vibe. Since Uranus turned retrograde, people have become very antsy, which was to be expected with a Uranus retrograde energy. If you're interested in understanding more about that, 2 videos ago, 2 Astro Weather Reports ago, I did a long talk about Uranus retrograde and what that would bring. Check that out. But this is going to really stir up that energy even more of social revolutions. What has gone on in the past where the identity of the masses has been usurped and squashed and what have you, and even those in power and stuff, where they're feeling like their energy is being usurped and squashed and mitigated in some way, it can cause clashes. It can cause ego wounds. Sun is our ego, and there can be ego wounds that result in some sort of revolutionary action now. So that is something to be aware of that could occur around the 30th of August. I know in Australia there's a lot of talk about some particular social action that is being proposed to bring change here. I'm not sure about other parts of the world. In Australia, our truck drivers are certainly talking a lot about taking some social revolutionary action to try and bring some change to the way things are being handled right now in our country. So feel free to share in the comment section below if there are any other social revolutions that you see coming on the 30th of August or playing out on the 30th of August. That's one that is, I'm not surprised to see the date that they've set for their action to be taken, in this case by the Australian truck drivers. But social revolutions can begin under this energy. Now, coupled with this is sort of an energy within us that is anger, that is rage, that is envy of people in positions of power. And this is a projection of this wound. So if you were, let's say, told by your teacher as a child that you couldn't draw and you lost your confidence there, you might find that this energy on the 30th of August triggers in you a rage at people who are talented with creativity, or an envy of people who have had success with drawing or creativity in some way. So that's one of the projections that can come with this energy. So don't be surprised if you find yourself in a state of envy and you're like, where's this coming from? I'm and Pluto's not doing anything in my chart, and Scorpio isn't even being activated, and all the things that we traditionally associate with things like envy and passionate they're not being activated, but this energy is, and it's coming from this triggering of somewhere in our lives where we lost our confidence, and we suddenly start to project that frustration and anger and rage and envy to people in those successful positions. The sun is success in the chart. And so that is likely to bubble up inside of you as well. So we need to put ourselves first. This is how we mitigate this energy. This is how we balance this energy. We need to put ourselves first in healthy ways on the 30th of August. And if you want to know what time in your part of the world this is occurring, do check out the description box below, which will tell you when this is happening in your part of the world. But you need to put yourself first in healthy ways that do not harm other people. As one of my teachers often uses the terminology enlightened selfishness, which I think is a beautiful terminology, because we've got used to this idea that to be selfish is bad, but is it bad? I think there are narcissistic selfishness, or there is narcissistic selfishness, but there is also enlightened selfishness. So I want to encourage you to embrace enlightened selfishness. Honor your ego's needs, honor your feelings, honor your sense of frustration and outrage that as a child you were told you couldn't draw, when all children should be allowed to be able to express their creativity in whatever ways work well for them. So get angry at that teacher, not in person, but use this energy, feel this energy, allow it to pass through your body now in healthy ways that do not harm others. So if you need to sort of get out the punching bag and pretend it's your grade 2 teacher who told you that you couldn't draw, get out the punching bag and have a few good punches and get that anger and rage out of your system. Let it go now. If you need to write a letter to someone, don't need to send it, but just write a letter, then perhaps burn it and offer it up to the universe. Do things that can help restore your emotional balance and allow those energies that will bubble up to move through you in healthy ways now. There will be also other things, other areas that you need to put yourself first in and to honor yourself in. We're going to talk about that now as we go through the all signs breakdown. So we're going to start with Sagittarius, actually. I'm going to give them a crack at going first. So we've got a little arrow forming here, haven't we? Sorry, just noticed. With Sagittarius rising, sun or moon people, the energy of this square, Tsquare, to the nodes is really being directed to the sun point in your 10th house. And this is where we might be feeling envious, rageful, frustrated kind of energy, and where we need to put ourselves first in healthy ways so that we don't harm other people, to honor our ego. And it's in the 10th house. This is the point of our highest inspiration. And the 10th house also represents the attitude that we need to cultivate in order to achieve success in life. So for Sagittarius people, they need to cultivate a Virgonian attitude, to serve, to help, to heal, to fix. That is the attitude that's going to take you a long way in life, Sagittarius. The more you can be in that state of energetic being, the more success you will experience in your chosen career. So what does it mean when we're having a Skipstep sun in the 10th house? And it could be a difficult day with bosses and authority figures. Could be a difficult day even with government leaders for Sagittarian people, or even father figures. Fatherly role models in your life might be proving to be a source of envy or a source of anger in your life and frustration in your life. So how can you best deal with this? Well, it would be a good idea to seek autonomy in your career. So what do I mean by that? I don't mean go chuck in your job and then go out and start your own graphic design business independently. I mean, some people might want to do that. Maybe that's a healthy thing. You would have to look at your own personal chart to see that. But by seeking autonomy in your career, I mean, even if you work for a big company or an organization, find some way to sort of go it alone today. If you're working on a project, see if there's a piece of that project that you can just handle autonomously and independently on this particular day. And you'll actually do a lot better and achieve a lot more and feel better about yourself and honor your own ego needs by being autonomous in the workplace, in your career endeavors under this energy. And also to mitigate any potential challenges that might crop up with this, it would be a good idea to put yourself and your career first. So if you've got a boss demanding that you do X, Y, and Z, and you feel like your own identity is being lost at the mercy of your boss. He wants to pump up his ego by doing X, Y, getting you to do X, Y, and Z for him, and your own career success is kind of lost here. Well, maybe it's a good idea to sort of, I'm not saying piss your boss off or anything like that, but maybe it's a good idea to put yourself and your career trajectory first, instead of putting the authority figures or the bosses or the government leaders or whatever agenda first. So the way to mitigate this skip step is to practice, as I said in the intro, enlightened selfishness regarding career. Don't harm others, but honor the self. Take steps towards honoring your career, your goals, and your desires for social success and a good reputation in the world. Honor how you wish to leave a legacy for others on this day. All right, we'll move along to Scorpio next. Scorpio rising, sun or moon people. The energy of the Skipstep sun for you is falling in the 11th house. Now, the 11th house represents places where people gather, not the actual physical building, but the communal gathering events. Okay, so communal property is seen from a different area of the chart, but the communal gathering events are 11th house things. And what did I say Skipstep sun is all about? Rage, anger, envy of people in positions of power and people who are in the spotlight. So if you're being involved in a protest or taking some sort of humanitarian action or involving yourself in a place where the masses gather, like might be at a rally in a town square or something like that, or maybe at a basketball stadium or whatever. If you're in one of those places, be aware. If you're a Scorpio person, you might be subjected to some kind of rage or anger that happens in a gathering place for the masses. Now, obviously, not everybody's a Scorpio who goes on a protest or goes to a rally or something like that. It's the Scorpio people with this occurring in the 11th house who might feel this the most, be the most sensitized to what is going on, and maybe even be the recipients of anger and aggression in a communal gathering space. So heads up on that one, Scorpio, and act with wisdom and integrity if you're thinking of being involved with those sort of things. I'm not saying don't get involved, but being forewarned is forearmed. You might find that on this day, the 30th of August, that you are particularly angry at people who create mass platforms. For example, big internet providers like Facebook and Instagram and what have you, these mass platforms. And again, these are mass gathering places. They're not physical spaces, but they're communal gathering spaces now on things like Facebook and Insta and TikTok and all that sort of stuff. And so this is another way that this anger and frustration coming out of this skip step energy might be presented. You might just get so ticked off with Facebook that you're like, see ya, Facebook. That's something I've done lately myself. Actually, I've removed Facebook from my phone because it's just such a hotbed of anger at the moment, and people being absolutely nasty and horrible. And I'm not one to participate in drama. I totally go into my shell or swim away like a little Pisces. Do not want to participate in any drama. So for Scorpio people, you might be feeling like anger and frustration at a mass gathering place online, and you might say, oh, if you're anything like me, I'm out of here. Not going to deal with this anymore because this is just upsetting me too much. Also, frustration and anger at maybe even feeling useless or like you have no identity within a political party, because 11th house does represent political parties as well. And let's face it, a lot of us are very angry at our political parties in the world in this day and age at the moment because of a lot of things that are unfolding. So to feel like your identity is being usurped by the actions of a political party or a government sort of organization or something at this time can be one of the energies that you experience. So don't be shocked, don't be surprised if that's what plays out. Also, this is the house of friends. There can be frustration at friends. Now, when I'm saying anger, it's not just random anger that has no basis. It's coming from maybe a wound that a friend has inflicted upon you in some time in the past that's caused like a identity crisis in you, you know? They said something and it really, you know, you acted like laughed it off or whatever, but deep down it was really upsetting and really hurtful, and you just sort of squashed it down and put it aside and try to carry on as normal. This is a day when that might come up again and there's frustration at a friend because they caused an identity crisis or a loss of confidence in you. So what I want to say is be aware that that is an energy that's playing out. Do you want to maintain this friendship, or are you going to explode like the proverbial volcano? But be sure that you put yourself first in the dynamics that you have with your friendships right now. Honor your needs, but do it in a way that does not harm others. So maybe you need to write a letter to that friend, or maybe you need to sit down and have a coffee and just say, look, you really hurt me that time when you said X, Y, Z, and I just feel like I need to resolve this now or it's going to eat at me forever. You know, do it in kind, gentle ways that allow the past to be dissolved. I mean, that's really what the point of this is. We're trying to, there's wounds from the past, South Node energy to the Sun. We want to absolve them and dissolve them in order to move into a better destiny. Skipstep energy. So that's what we're seeing that might be playing out for Scorpio this week. Now, if you are Libra rising or Sun or Moon people, the energy of the Sun in a Skipstep formation is happening in your 12th house. So if you have had any past life experiences, and I believe we probably all have had one or another, past life experiences where you've lost your sense of identity and the ego has been wounded, well, any of those kinds of events will be triggered today for you. And of course, you may not even know where this is coming from, but you just feel angry and frustrated because maybe you feel like your voice is never heard, or that you try to be creative and present your creativity to the world and it never gets anywhere, or you're trying to honor your ability to shine in some way, Librans, and it feels like there are blocks and maybe self-sabotage present. And this is likely to all be coming from these past life experiences of a loss of identity that occurred in some way. So you might feel confused, not knowing why you feel the way that you do on this day. You might be even shocked over the high, intense emotions that you are feeling on this day, the 30th of August. Okay, but if you know, if you remember what I'm saying here, and you can remind yourself, oh, look, it could be a past life thing that's just triggering me. I'm going to be gentle with myself. I'm going to be kind to me. I might do even a little bit of escapism. You know, I might go read a book by candlelight in the bath with some classical music or something, just to sort of nurture my little wounded heart here. You know, that is perfect thing to do with 12th house energy, for example. But you might even find that people who've inflicted these sort of past life wounds, and look, if you don't believe in past lives, it could be that someone from early in your childhood shows up, maybe that teacher who told you couldn't draw in grade 2. Somebody from the past can show up who was the inflictor of this wound. Now, you might never have met this person before, but somebody randomly crosses your path. It could be some cranky shopper in the supermarket, and they cross your path and you don't know it, but they've been the energy that's inflicted a wound in a previous incarnation, perhaps. And they show up again on this day because it's a very karmic thing to experience a skip step. And these kinds of people will likely have been the gaslighters of our past experiences, or the narcissists of our past experiences. So be prepared. The energy could be heavy duty in that sense. So don't be surprised if you encounter someone who really pushes your buttons under this energy. And be prepared, as I said, to put yourself first when it comes to dealing with people who wish to usurp your own identity. You know, put yourself first and say, you know, you're dealing with a cranky person in the parking lot of the supermarket, and you're just like, I'm going to breathe through this. I'm going to focus on myself. I'm going to be present in the moment and look at what's beautiful today. Let them go and have their stupid, cranky rage and put me down and, belittle me or whatever they're doing out there, in the parking lot. I am just going to breathe, listen to this beautiful music on my stereo in the car and let that wash over and past and out of me. Focus on you. Put yourself first. Don't sort of let your ego be triggered where possible under this energy, so that the karmic flow just goes straight on by you and you stay in your high vibration if possible, Libra. So keep that in mind. Put yourself first. Honor the self. Focus on the self when you're dealing with people who want to upset your own sense of identity. Okay, that could happen for us all on the 30th for Libran people. Now, if we are Virgo rising, sun or moon people, well, obviously, this energy of the sun in a skip-step position is falling in your first house, Virgo. So this is a placement that says we're about to initiate some sort of a new beginning. We won't know that it's karmic, but it will be because the skip-step is a very karmic signature. So this new beginning will have to do with your identity. You might be turning over a new leaf with your image. You might be turning over a new leaf with your personality and presentation to the world in some way. It's a wonderful opportunity if we know how to handle the energy well. I want to say, though, be very careful of giving off the energy and the impression to other people of anger and frustration and rage and envy, because that can come across now. You decide you're going to jump on Facebook and, tap away and, you say your little rant or whatever, and you think, yep, I'm getting my voice heard and I'm sharing my energy out there, but it's coming across with this skip-step, frustrated energy of anger and envy and rage, and that's how it's coming across and being interpreted. So just be very careful, and might be a good idea if you're a Virgo person to get things double checked by somebody whose opinion you value before you take a step. Like if you want to go and talk to somebody about something, it's important, run it past somebody else first. Going to send an email that's a bit hairy, check it with somebody else first. Be careful of giving off the impression in your public persona and your private persona of anger and rage. Also, don't allow yourself to internalize envy and rage under this energy. I mean, that's a good practice to be in all the time, but it will be intense on the 30th of August. So I would encourage you to find ways to let the anger and the envy and the frustration and all those skip-step responses to maybe past life dynamics that are coming up, find ways to express them, that release it, let it go, so that you're not carrying it internally anymore. Maybe write a journal entry, or maybe ring a friend and just blurt it all out and share where you're at. You might even, like, good ways that don't hurt other people, putting yourself first, honoring your inner feelings, inner rage, let's say, will help reduce it, but do it in ways that are safe mechanisms that won't hurt, harm, or impact other people where possible. So that would be my suggestion for Virgo rising, sun or moon people to cope with this skip-step energy and get the most out of it. Don't forget to put yourself first as well, and honor yourself in whatever ways feel good to you. First house is all about you and initiating good new things for yourself. Okay, Leo rising, sun, moon. This energy is falling for you in the second house. The sun as a skipped step point. Just a passing skip step point, but an important one nonetheless. This can bring a sense of frustration with and rage directed to people who have more security in the world than you do, or personal power or self-sufficiency. And we're seeing this a lot in the world at the moment, aren't we? So, like in Australia, I don't know, I'll give you an example. I'm a Leo sun, so it probably is a bit pertinent to me, but my whole life I have been trying my best to get to a point where I can buy myself a little property that will be self-sufficient. Big goal and dream of mine, I'm not ashamed to admit. And as property prices where I live due to the pandemic have gone through the roof, like they're so so expensive now to buy in rural Australia, because people are like, I'm getting the hell out of the city. I don't want to be caught for the next 10 years every winter in lockdowns in Australia. Now, I'm not saying that we're going to have lockdowns every 10 years in winter time for the next 10 years in Australia. I'm not saying that. I'm just giving a hypothetical here. And so people are like, I'm getting out of the city. I'm buying a place in the country and I'll do my work by online, the internet kind of thing. And so there goes my ability. I thought I'm just getting to a point where I might be able to do this. And lo and behold, the property prices have gone berserk. And it's, again, out of my reach, out of my grasp to do this. So I wouldn't be surprised, given the circumstances that I've just described, that for me as a Leo sun, and I'm talking to all Leo sun, rising and moon sign people, I wouldn't be at all surprised to see myself get into a state of frustration and rage and envy of people who've been able to buy beautiful little country properties under this energy. That may very well come up for me. And therefore, I fit the bill of what I'm describing here. Envy of people with security, people with more personal power, people with more self-sufficiency in that kind of circumstance. So how do we deal with those sorts of things? Well, there's a need now, there will be a need on the 30th of August to feel more autonomous and more independent with money. So, if there's some way, I know it's not a lot of time between this reading on Saturday the 28th and the 30th of August, only 2 days, but how can you do something with your financial situations, Leo, that will help you feel more autonomous, more independent with money? Nothing is coming to my mind, but if you can think of something, then share it below for other Leo people. How can you enact some sort of autonomous material situation in life? Look, it could just be that you go down the street and buy yourself a planter box and fill it with herbs. Well, there you go. You've taken action with some, your finances to create a resource that's going to be there for you to help you be more independent. You don't have to go to the supermarket every time you need a bunch of rosemary or, something for the mint for your drink that you're making or whatever. That's just an example that came to my mind. Thank you, universe. So do something to make you feel more autonomous and independent with your resources. And food is a resource, so that's why I chose that example. Put yourself first also in financial matters on this day and value yourself. This is the way to mitigate the frustration. So how can we put ourselves first in financial matters? Well, and somebody, like, I'll give you an example again from my life. A child comes and says, I need the new iPhone, blah, blah, blah. And you realize that there's a mortgage to pay or whatever. And, it's like, no, I know you want that, and I know you think that would be good, but I'm going to put our family's well-being first, and we're not going to go buy that new iPad. We're going to pay the mortgage or put food in the pantry or whatever it happens to be. So that's a very simple, straightforward explanation. And of course, most people with half a brain are going to do that, aren't they? Pay the mortgage rather than buy, a 13-year-old an iPhone. So... But there are other examples of how that could play out as well, where it's perhaps a little less black and white, Do I do this or do I do that? Put yourself first financially with your spending, with your investments. Be sensible. Don't hurt anybody else in your actions with money. But in putting yourself first now, that's firstly, it's valuing yourself, and it will mitigate the anger and the rage that might be coming up with this placement. And it will also help you to move through that karmic rising up of energy of frustration regarding maybe self-sufficiency and personal power, and maybe the lack of it right now. So I hope that makes sense. I probably made that quite convoluted and I didn't need to, so I do apologize. Cancer rising, sun or moon people, the energy of this week's Skipstep that is occurring is falling for you in the 3rd house, Cancer. Now, I'm just going to get my board okay there. So what this is going to mean for you with this falling in the 3rd house is that the energy of the Skipstep, which is very karmic, kind of bubbling up of energy that needs to be resolved, might be coming from or instigated, let's say, from some situation with extended family members like relatives, siblings. It could also come from close friends and maybe teammates. workmates, those kinds of people who might trigger something in you that reminds you of a time either in this lifetime, or it might be triggering memories and behaviors from a past life where your identity was usurped. So a sibling runs you down, or makes you feel less than in some way. That's the kind of thing we're talking about here. And it's bringing back old memories that come bubbling to the surface, even subconscious, feelings and memories from the past. So that's what a skip-step energy can trigger with this passing skip-step energy. So this is also the house of the mind, the mental thinking, not the emotional feelings, but the mental thinking is a third house thing. We can get lost in our monkey mind about these things. Our sister tells us, you've never accomplished anything. I'm so embarrassed by you. And it really hurts your ego, really wounds your sense of identity. And you just can't stop thinking about it. And you try to go to bed at night and you're tossing and you're turning, but you're thinking, well, what have I done to deserve her saying that about me? And, how come she's acting this way? And what, maybe I am too much like this, and maybe I need to, and you're just spinning those wheels and cogs in your head. So don't be surprised if something occurs and it really sets your mind racing, mind going, off on a tangent about perceived harm to the ego, and this gives mental anguish. So how do we deal with this kind of energy on the 30th of August, Cancer people? Well, I would suggest to put yourself first with these people. If your sibling runs you down in some way, then confront her in a way, or him in a way, that is not going to damage things in the long term, but just put your needs out there. Honor yourself. Don't lie tossing and turning all night in bed with a mental anguish. Ring them up and say, look, you said XYZ today. I find that was so offensive to me, and I'm just wondering why you thought that, and can we work out and resolve this? Be level-headed, be Libran diplomatic about this, Cancer. So honor the self. Don't squash it down. Those sorts of things, when we squash down our frustrations in situations like that, it's one of the triggers that can lead long-term to Cancer. So put yourself first. Sort things out with, family members, team members, close friends who have maybe in some way undermined your identity. And that can take courage. You might need courage to do that. But it is actually a karmic endeavor, because what has come to the surface with this skip step is actually old wounds from long ago that have just been triggered by a family member under this energy. An extended family member, because now we're going to move on to Gemini and look at this energy falling in the 4th house. And the 4th house is the house of, family. Sorry about this, Gemini. Every week fuss with that, don't I? I do apologize. So this is the house where we might be feeling under this skip step sun emotional envy or rage due to family matters, particularly if, so in the 3rd house I talked about, the 3rd house Cancer energy, I was speaking about extended family, like siblings. Now we're talking about either our parents, mother or father, or our children, or our spouse, our intimate tribal family, very close family we're talking about here, Gemini. And you might be experiencing this emotional envy or rage. Maybe somebody, your mum gives more love to your brother than she gives to you, and it's always been that way, and you're like, I'm just so over this. My emotions have been wounded. It has usurped my sense of confidence, the fact that she always puts him first. And I feel like my own uniqueness and my individuality has been stomped on and not appreciated. That's the kind of stuff. That's the zone we're going into here. So if there's any family, things buried deep, they're going to bubble up on this day for you to deal with and resolve. And of course, these kinds of incidences with intimate family can really affect your sense of belonging. The 4th house is how we feel we belong in the world, our sense of I am here. Now that can be family in the dynamics that I've just talked about, but it can also look like, your community, your intimate tribal community where you live. Do I belong in this community? Am I part of this community? It can really make you feel out of place. So that, you feel like you don't belong in your home, you don't belong in your family, nobody's ever wanted you here. And even like this is the fourth house of very deep emotions, you might even go into not a sulky kind of energy, but an energy of I've never been appreciated here, and I just don't fit with everybody else, and those sorts of things. Now these are bubbling up, as I said, from possible past life triggers that have put a wound in the psyche or hurt the soul in some manner, and it's being sort of activated. The button is being pushed on this day for you to deal with this again, to bring it up in your awareness so that you can resolve it. So acknowledge these feelings of being out of place, perhaps. Acknowledge these feelings, let them flow through you, be present in those energies, because the more we can honor those things, the quicker they pass through us, and the less we get stuck in the monkey mind of I mustn't feel like this, or I'm so silly to be thinking like that, or it's wrong, I'll squash down my emotions and ignore them. No, what we want to do is honor our feelings right now. So put your emotional needs in first place right now. If you're feeling like mum always gives more attention to my brother than me, maybe you might need to address that with your mum in a way that is gentle and kind, but it's putting your needs first, and your hurt feelings and your hurt, like the wounds that you carry, you're putting them first and honoring them by saying, can we resolve this? And maybe you can't resolve it. I'm not saying that this is an energy where you will resolve it, but it's going to give you, but by addressing it, you're actually going to help transform and dissolve in your own heart the trigger that this particular circumstance has brought about. So you address it. Mum says, look, I've never done that. I think you're barking up the wrong tree. And you're like, well, that didn't achieve anything. Well, it may actually achieve a resolution in your heart, because you haven't just worn it. You've taken action to honor your feelings and emotions, even if it didn't end up the way you wanted it to. You've honored your feelings and emotions, and that is the key here. That is the key that unlocks the door to dealing with these old karmic skip-stepped energies. Putting your needs first, honoring your heart right now. So that would be my suggestion, Gemini. Honor your heart right now, and resolve those karmic issues in the beautiful, light, breezy way that Gemini likes to do. All right, Taurus rising, sun or moon people. Well, the energy for this skip step for you guys is falling in Virgo, your fifth house. And so this is the house of lovers, children, creativity. But this is a house that shows the obstacles that we have in our life to being able to progress. Why is that? Because the fifth house is the eighth house, crisis, upheavals, change. The eighth house from the 10th. The 10th is our progress and our ability to achieve in the world. And so 8 houses from the 10th is the fifth house. It's our obstacles to progressing in the world. So we might find that with a skip step occurring in the fifth house, our ego might be our undoing right now. Our ego that gets frustrated and angry and envious over some circumstance in life might be stopping us from moving ahead the way we want to. So be conscious of that, because knowledge is power. Now, egocentric people can certainly impact us a great deal on the 30th of August, when this energy of a skip step sun will play out. So you might encounter some egocentric people who are so far up themselves that, they can't see the sunshine. Those kinds of encounters, and it might, encountering those sorts of people might actually make you feel less than, and it might wound your identity. But we're going to talk about ways to mitigate those feelings in just a minute. This is also an energy of envy, and remember, I said in the intro that these feelings, these energies are bubbling up because there's something that was probably encountered in a previous lifetime. Somebody usurped you in a past lifetime and left you feeling like you weren't good enough and you had an identity crisis or something. And so what is going on now is the people of a fifth house nature, egocentric people in the shadow side, but in the positive side, our lovers and our children, can be the triggers for us now of those old wounds. They've really done nothing to us in this lifetime, but they say something or they do something and it pushes that button of that old wound in us, and we get angry and we get rageful and we get envious and frustrated. So this is like where we might envy people who've got, if we're single, we might envy people with loving connections in life. A couple walks past hand in hand and they're smooching away and everything, and we're sitting there drinking our coffee by ourselves at a cafe, and we like suddenly feel this pang of envy. There is lovers. Fifth house is lovers. Two lovers, and they're throwing it in my face that I don't have love, and we get envious and jealous. That's a Skipstep sun in the fifth house kind of thing. We can be very angry towards any of our, if we're in a relationship dynamic with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, if our lover usurps our identity in some way. If our children usurp our identity in some way, if they, and that can happen. That happens all the time with children. They behave in a certain way out in public, and suddenly the person that you imagined yourself to be takes a big blow because of your kid's behavior out in public. So that can certainly happen, and that's an example of what might occur on this day, where a button gets pushed, but instead of just brushing it off like you would usually, it's going to trigger that karmic wound, and you'll be like, oh, that hurts. I'm now angry. I'm now rageful. Lovers can do the same thing. They might just say something offhand and it really goes to heart. So how do we mitigate some of these Skipstep sun challenges in the fifth house? Well, it's a really good idea to honor yourself on this day, to set aside some time to indulge yourself. And as I said in the intro, perhaps practice some enlightened selfishness. Take some time to, paint a picture, draw a drawing, whatever floats your boat creatively. It might be writing a story or a poem or something like that. Take some time for yourself to use your own intelligence, to use your own imagination. That could even just, what are we looking at? Virgo here, you're probably more into something practical with your hobbies and with your creativity. So it could be that, you sit down and design a new website and, the dishes are waiting to be done on the bench. So what? Honor your creativity. Use your intelligence. Use your imagination. And this can actually help you feel so much better by honoring the self in a fifth house way under this Skipstep energy. So that's what I'm seeing with regard to Taurus energy and the Skipstep in Virgo in the fifth house. Now, Aries rising, sun or moon people. Well, the energy of the sun in a Skipstep format is falling for you in the sixth house at this time. So you, above all signs, Aries, need to really watch out and be careful. Why is that? This is the house of enemies. And this energy of a Skipstep sun is representative of wounds to the psyche that you carry from maybe earlier in this lifetime or past lifetimes, when somebody in a position of power it could be in a position of power that's an enemy, that really stomped on your ego, destroyed your identity, caused an identity crisis, and it wounded you. And so some actions from someone who is your enemy in this incarnation, Aries, on this day could really trigger you and push your buttons in a way that you didn't think they would be able to, because of the karma that is present in the energy on this day. So enemies could be stomping all over your pride now on this day, and people from lower levels of society, maybe work associates, people who hold grudges towards you or who are envious of you, can really make it tough for you. Now, that probably makes it sound like, oh my God, I'm going to go, hide in bed and not come out all day. Why not? It sounds like fun. But yeah, forewarned is forearmed. If you see this unfolding, you're like, there's that Skipstep. It's triggering things in me. It's making me feel this way. You know what? I'm I'm going to let that flow through me. I'm going to allow those feelings to be there because I want it to dissolve the karma here. And that's really what's going on. It might feel like things are a bit crazy, but there is purpose behind all this. So how's the best way to handle this? Well, with the sun in the 6th house, and it's a skip-step energy, one of the things you need to do is put 6th house things at the forefront. Put your health first, put rest first, put diet first, avoid stress, get organized and make those things a priority. Put 6th house things as a priority now to help you balance this energy. But what I want to just point out for Aries people, even though this is a tough one, just know that there is a big, big karmic unraveling happening in your life with this skip step falling in the 6th house, because the 6th house is where we heal, or let's call it burn our karma and get rid of the negative karma that we don't want. And usually we do that through service. 6th house is service. And that's why service is such a big feature, so predominantly in so many religions and philosophies and what have you, because service is the antidote to karma that we want to get rid of. So if you can put service at the forefront, Aries, then you also have a greater chance of unraveling and dissolving and getting rid of the karma that might be present, that frustration, that envy, those attacks from people who wish you ill. If you focus on service, then you direct your energy there, and you're actually going to mitigate and resolve a lot of the karma that you might have been carrying for lifetimes. So word to the wise there, Aries. Okay, Pisces rising, sun and moon people. The energy of the skip step is falling in the 7th house. Well, as I said in the intro, one of the projections of this skip step that might bubble up is envy, rage, or anger. And there'll be something that occurs instigated by someone else, because this is falling in the house of other people. 7th house is all others. This is you, this is everybody else. And so there may be some envy, some rage, some anger, either from other people to you or from you towards other people. So don't be surprised to see something sort of bubble up on the 30th of August in that realm. You might be experiencing, for example, if you're a single Pisces person, envy of people with relationships, people who have good support mechanisms and committed partnerships in their life while you're on your own, and that can trigger some envy or rage or anger. And there might be some event that occurs on the 30th of August that pushes that button of envy in you. If you're in a relationship, Pisces people, you might experience some sort of rage at a partner for any type of infraction that hurts your identity, that wounds your ego or your pride. It could just be that your wife says to you, "You're always leaving the towels on the floor in the bathroom. Can't you just pick them up?" And you just, suddenly you're so angry, Why is it that you would be angry on this day more than yesterday when she told you to pick up the towels off the bathroom floor? Pick up those towels. Why would it be worse on this day? Because the energy is very karmic, and a comment like that might be sort of, you're getting the impression that she's running you down, that's saying you're useless, and that's attacking your pride, and it's triggering an energy that you've carried over from a past lifetime where somebody made you feel less than, somebody wounded your pride. So essentially, Pisces people, be careful of losing it with your partner over next to nothing, simply because it's triggering that karmic button in you. Also, this is the house of your second-born child. So if you have more than one child, it could be that your second-born triggers that frustration in some way, triggers you feeling less than, triggers you feeling that your identity is at stake and your ego is wounded in some way. So they're the people who might be triggering that in you. But this is also the house of how we perceive others. The first house is how others perceive us, and the 7th house is how we perceive other people. And we might be, looking out at the world if we're Pisces rising, and I must admit, from what I've been observing on Instagram and Facebook and all these social media pages, it's not too far-fetched to say, you look out at the world through those mechanisms and you get a perception that everybody's envious, everybody's angry, everybody's in rage state. And, it sucks. So on this day, something might trigger a perception that people out there in the world are angry, frustrated, envious, cranky, kinds of rageful people. Ego clashes with others are also possible on this day. So forewarned, forearmed there, Pisces people. How do we mitigate all this? How do we sort of push beyond these skip step energies that are coming up? Well, I would encourage you to put yourself first in relationships now. Honor the self. If somebody runs you down because you've left the towels on the floor in the bathroom, you might like to sort of sit down with them and say, look, hey, I'm not doing this on purpose. My mind was in other places. How can we restructure things in the bathroom so that I don't keep doing this and I'm not hurting you by doing it, and I'm not feeling like I'm less than when I forget to put the towels on the rack? I'm just coming up with some crazy examples. But the bottom line is, put yourself first in relationships now. Sort out the problems. Don't be a martyr, Pisces. You're so good at being a martyr for other people. This is not the day for doing that. If you want to transform any of these old karmic wounds, you've got to put yourself first. This is not the day for being the holy martyr. So approach somebody who's hurt you or offended you and sort it all out. Or, if dealing with it, because Pisces is the fish icon, and what do fish do when they feel threatened? They just scamper off, to the other end of the river or the ocean or whatever. They're out of there, quick as a wink. So if that's how you feel that you need to cope with things, Pisces, by running away and escaping, then honor that. If that's how you need to put yourself first with a relationship that's going sour, then do that. Honor yourself and honor your energetic impulse, Pisces. It might sound crazy, but in doing so, you will be able to dissolve some of these past life ego wounds simply through honoring the self and putting the self first instead of martyring yourself for others. At the risk of repeating myself many times there. Okay, thank you, Pisces. I love you guys. Okay, Aquarius rising, sun or moon, other people who I love. In fact, what is it with dating apps? They always give me Aquarian people when I'm on the dating apps. Oh, and everybody I date, I go on dinners with and what have you, they all seem to be Aquarian people. It's bizarre. Anyhow, I do love Aquarius as a sign. It's fabulous. But for you guys, the energy of the Skipstep sun is falling in the 8th house. Now, as I said in the intro, the energy of a Skipstep can be a projection of rage, a projection of anger and frustration and envy. And this is coming because some past life wounds to our identity have been triggered. And that's what might be unfolding for us on the 30th of August. But you know what? If you're feeling angry because somebody triggers you, this can actually be an indicator that you're about to go through a big breakthrough, Aquarius. Something might be about to really turn around in your life. So if you notice yourself feeling rage over something, feeling envy over something, actually honor that and say, okay, say to yourself, it's all right to feel angry. It's all right to feel envy. I honor that this is a part of my emotional experience. That's why we're all here, isn't it? As the divine in human form, to experience what it's like to have emotions. So allow those emotions to be there. Don't take action on those things that hurt other people or destroy other people or wreck your life, but honor the emotional experience, because it's most likely in the 8th house going to bring you some kind of big breakthrough. Pay attention to your frustrations. Pay attention to your anger, because it will be indicating also a karmic area of life that wants to be transformed. So let's say you might be frustrated over somebody else's resources that are impacting your own personal power and identity and pride. Somebody is not letting you have, like the bank's not letting you have the loan that you need to do X, Y, and Z. Honor that feeling of anger and frustration. Somebody else has the resources, they've got access to the community hall for their yoga practice, and you missed out. Honor your feeling of envy towards that person. I mean, don't go and sort of, burn the community hall down or anything stupid like that, but honor your energy of, I'm envious here. Say, you know what, it's okay to feel envious. I'm going to let that feeling of envy sit with me and then just pass through, instead of trying to stuff it down and ignore it and pretend it doesn't exist. Put your own need for power to the forefront, but in healthy ways. I wanted that community hall for my yoga business. And, you honor your desire for power there, and that you missed out. And like I've just said, honor that feeling of envy. And if there is any way that it can be actioned with integrity, take back your power where it's been usurped. Maybe you go into the local council and say, look, you promised me that I could have that community hall for my yoga practice, and now you've gone and given it to someone else. Can you please provide me with an alternative location? You might end up with a better venue than you even thought you would. So, do take action to restore power where it has been usurped in ways that are respectful and kind and loving and dignified, etc. But that's what I'm seeing. As I said, there is going to be some sort of karmic area of life that will need to be transformed, and it'll have something to do with personal power and taking back your personal power. I've just given you the illustration of the resources of the community, which are an 8th house thing, but it could be other things. Maybe you need to take back your power with, I don't know, a shaman or someone who has ripped you off. 8th house is shaman. Maybe it might even have nothing to do with 8th house things, but there is a need to take back personal power. Maybe, I don't know, maybe your children have done something and you need to take back personal power there. Children are a 5th house thing. Maybe your boss has done something, you need to take back personal power. Bosses are a 10th house thing. So it's not so much about who is triggering it. It's about the fact that you've lost a sense of power that needs to be resolved, and you need to put your need to take power back in first place, done in kindly, non-violent, non-upheaval type ways. I hope that makes sense, Aquarius. I have a feeling I've been a bit kooky with what I've just explained there. I hope you're following my gist. All right. Thank you, Aquarius. And finally, thanks for sticking with this Capricorn rising, sun or moon people. The energy of this beautiful, sorry about that, everybody. The energy of this Skipstep that wants to transform us is falling for you in the 9th house. Now, if you listen to the intro, I spoke about the fact that the Skipstep energy works like where we are carrying... we get triggered and we project things to do with the sun, and they've come through from past lifetimes. So we might have had an incident in a past life where somebody usurped our identity or our ego or our confidence in some way. And then something occurs on the 30th of August that pushes that karmic button because this energy is being activated. And we revisit some either early this lifetime or past lifetime circumstance that caused a sense of rage in us, or a sense of frustration or envy in us. So in the 9th house, this could be triggering an envy of people who are in high-level spiritual positions in the world, the spiritual teachers, the spiritually successful people, or people who are more cultured, more well-traveled, more well-educated than you are. And you could find yourself just in a position of envy. Eckhart Tolle sold millions of copies of his book, and, how come my book isn't going so well, and blah, blah, blah. And there's this energy of envy, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's that Skipstep being triggered. Allow it to bubble up so that it can be resolved and let go of in this lifetime, so you don't carry it with you into the next lifetime. Sit with it, detach, observe. I'm feeling this way, and that's, I can understand why I must be feeling that way. That's okay. I'm not going to let it sort of be part of my sense of personality or my being, but I'm just going to observe that it's there and let it flow through. So that's how it might express rage, anger, envy towards those kinds of people and circumstances in the world. Someone's able to travel. Here in Australia, we haven't been able to leave the country for 2 years. Well, our Prime Minister has, but that's a whole other story. Yet other people in the world are moving around country to country like they always have. So, if you're a Capricorn rising sun or moon person and you're stuck in Australia and you want to travel and you can't, that could trigger some envy and frustration for you all as well. That's just an example. So what can we do to mitigate this, to help support this energy to flow through us and out of us so that it's dissolved and no longer a karmic trigger in our lives? Well, I would encourage you to turn to your faith and your beliefs to support you. This is a house of faith and belief to deal with such feelings. If you're into present moment awareness, practice that, and I highly recommend it. That's fabulous. If you like meditating, if you like to read spiritual books to help you gain your balance and perspective on life, then do those things. Turn to your faith, turn to your beliefs to support you. Turn to philosophies right now. Prioritize also your need for freedom and truth in life. Okay, you might be stuck in Australia, but hey, it's a damn big country. And once we get out of lockdown, there's certainly plenty to explore and, travel to. And every corner of Australia has not been uncovered. You can go and explore the outback or whatever. So, prioritize your need to feel free and make plans. If you can't actively go and be free, make plans about how you're going to be free in the future. Search for truth. That could be just jumping online, going to an exhibition online if you can't go physically in person, or go to a philosophy lecture online. Search for your truth and prioritize your need for freedom and truth in whatever ways you can, Capricorn, and it will help you deal with those karmic triggers, the karmic buttons that are being pushed through this skipped step. So my lovely people, that is our roundup of the skip step energy and how it will be affecting us in the week ahead. I hope this is a reading that has blessed you on your journey and gives you some tools to handle the week ahead. Let's close with a prayer. Energy of love in the universe. These are very crazy times that we're living in, and we ask for an inflow of upliftment and joy that just washes over everybody who's part of this channel this week. Help us to find a way to be in our best vibration, to be present in the moment, and to find delight and joy in our lives, in the world right now, because we're part of a great movement of change and up-leveling. Help us to find delight and joy in being part of that momentum. And so it is. Well, thank you, my lovely friends. I will be with you with another Astro Weather Report next week. I'll catch you then.